I'm gonna show you how to sell anything to anyone, and this is the same sales process and structure that I use to generate over $100 million in sales. Now, before we get into the structure, a few things to keep in mind. Your mindset is super important. When you go into sales, the best way to sell is to not care. Essentially not give a shit. The less you care, the easier it is to sell. If people get on a call and they feel pressure and they feel that you have to make this money or you're not gonna pay your rent, even if that's true, they're not going to want to buy from you. So when you get on the call, you need to not give a fuck. Pretend that this is a person simply asking you for advice and you're a friend. You don't care what they do, but you care about them. And you're just like, hey, I wanna make sure that you get the right information, you make the right decision, but end of the day, this is your life. It needs to be from that type of attitude. The next thing is how to be ready and be prepared. Before the call, you should be sitting down, pen, paper, and you should have their application up. And so you can start from the very beginning on the right foot. If you're getting to the call late or you haven't looked at an application or you don't have anything, it's gonna be a really tough sales call. Beginners, rookies will sell door to door, right? And that's where I learned a ton of my skills. That is the hardest way to sell. But professionals already know people who are looking to buy what they have. If they're not even looking or they don't have the finances, they're not even gonna get on the phone with them. So make sure that you're ready and prepared and that individual is ready to buy. Next thing is then make sure that you're ready for rejection. You're only supposed to close 30% of your sales calls over the phone. So that means 7 out of 10 people are gonna tell you no, which means you're gonna get a lot more no's than you're gonna get yeses. The game of sales is like a lot of things in life, is consistency. It's who can do it the longest and continue to keep pushing even when they're losing. So with this in mind, make sure that you're ready for rejection. Now, with that out of the way, what I wanna go through now, we'll get through these next 4, is a little bit of the scripting. Now, when you start a sales call, the way I have it is about 7 points. You wanna start with what we call the intro and the pre-frame. All that's gonna sound like is, hey, Tanner, Chidester, super excited you're on the call today. What I wanna do through this call is figure out what your goals are, what you're struggling with, what you may have tried, and at the end, if what we can do is a fit for you, great, we'll move forward. If it's not a fit for you, I'll send you off on your way and I'll try to refer you to wherever you need to go. Does that all work? It's super simple. You don't have to do anything crazy. Now, a different way to do the intro pre-frame if you're a beginner and you're not very good at sales, if you're selling B2C or you're selling someone who's less sophisticated, meaning that they're not as attuned to sales or they're not sold very often, you can use a harsher pre-frame. And a harsher pre-frame would sound something like, hey Tanner, so at the end of the call, we wanna see if this is a fit and I'm looking for 1 of 2 answers, either yes, it sounds good, or no, I don't wanna do this. The only thing we're trying to stay away from is I don't know, or I need to think about it, because if you don't know at the end of the call, you probably should say no, because that means I didn't do a good job. If you're still confused, you probably shouldn't work with us, because my job is to make sure that you're super clear. Does that sound fair? A lot of sales trainers will say, don't do that. And the reason they say not to do that is because if it's a higher level person like myself, that's gonna turn me off because it's a sales tactic. But if you're selling to someone who's in B2C, so business to consumer, or they're not as attuned to sales, it's fine. The higher level the salesperson is, the less sales tactics I would use, because they know what you're doing, right? And that breaks trust and loses rapport because they know it's like, this isn't really genuine, it's a sales tactic. Sales tactics can work. You also need to make sure they're coming from the right place, but keep in mind, if they're less sophisticated, you can use more of them, right? You can get away with less sales ability. The more sophisticated they are, it's gonna take a lot more sales ability. So that's the intro and the pre-frame. Next thing is the discovery. The goal of discovery is to ask questions so you understand the entire situation. A lot of times people will overthink this and they try to get way too salesy. Again, pretend you're sitting in front of your friend and your friend says, hey, I have cancer, I don't know what to do. What would you ask? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. What's the goal? Like, what have you done so far? Have you seen how many doctors? Where did you go? What did they say? Did you get a second opinion? You're gonna ask all the questions before you give advice. You're not gonna just start giving advice without any context. Now, a lot of the questions you're gonna ask here, obviously the goal. We can't give advice until we know what the end goal is. So if someone says, I have cancer, and it's like, hey, what do you want? Do you wanna get better? It's like, I don't wanna get better. I just wanna leave my kids a ton of money. I'm gonna give completely different advice. If they say, I wanna recover as soon as possible, great. Or if they say, I don't have any money, like the goals will change based on what they say. So obviously the goal, struggle. What have you tried? Other questions you can ask, because again, we're trying to understand the situation. If it's B2B, I might ask, have you ran ads before? Have you done sales before? Have you ever hired anyone before? If it's B2C, I'm gonna say, are you sure this is what you wanna do? So B2C meaning, let's say they're in the market for buying shoes. It's like, are you sure you want shoes? Like, how long have you been thinking about this? Are you positive you want shoes? Because we need certainty and we need desire and we need finances. Other questions I may ask would be, what's your opportunity cost? This is a question I love to do. So how long have you been thinking about buying XYZ? 6 months. Okay, let's say if you did buy this thing you'd be making $10,000 a month. So you've lost $60,000. Is that accurate? Or if it's weight loss, you say, hey, so how long have you been thinking about losing weight? About a year. Okay, so we honestly could have lost about 60 pounds in a year. So that basically means you're a whole year behind, right? Is it an option for you not to move forward today if it feels like it's a fit? We're looking to get tie downs. Tie downs mean, yes, I'll move forward if it's a fit. Yes, this is something I'm serious about. Yes, I have finances. A lot of times you can reverse engineer the questions you want to ask by simply knowing what you want them to say. At the end of the day, we want a couple things. We want them to say, yes, I'll move forward today. Yes, I have money. And yes, I understand the opportunity cost by not moving forward. Why? Because at the end of the call, when they start giving you all the bullshit objections, you can go right back to this saying, well, look, you said you lost this much money or this much time not doing it. You said you wanted to move forward today, and you said you have finances. The goal is not to get to the end of the call to beat objections. The goal is to beat the objections in the beginning of the sales call. The objections you get at the end, you just move to the front in discovery by asking better questions. This is the most important part of the call. The intro and pre-frame should take about 5 minutes. This right here is 15 to 20. Give or take. So you're about 25 minutes in. Now, once we get through this, we're gonna go through what we call the 3 pillars. Now, the 3 pillars is your selling point on why they should buy from you. What I wanna do really quick to make this fun is we're gonna go to Thanasi, who's behind the camera. Thanasi, give me an offer, any offer. We're gonna do 2 different offers so you guys see exactly how this works.
This one's a content agency, consulting company.
Thanasi said a content agency. Very predictable for him. Okay, so what we wanna do first is understand what the 3 pillars are. The 3 pillars are the main 3 reasons why they should work with you. Okay, I teach this in all my sales processes. Whenever you're going to date a girl, right, or a guy, if you're a girl watching this, you don't look at a guy and go, oh, you're just like everyone else. I wanna date you. That would make no sense. You look at them and say, what makes them unique? What makes them different? Is he taller? Is he smarter? Is he more handsome? Does he have more money? Like every other person on earth. So the first thing I wanna do when I'm doing the 3 pillars is figure out, what are the 3 things I do that are super different? And what does everyone else do? Okay, so let's start with this. And it's really easy to do. So for example, you learn these on your initial sales calls, or you can just ask your client, Thanasi, what would you say most agency content businesses do, right? So if they're an agency, they build content, what could you probably say every single person does do?
They edit reels.
Okay, so they edit reels, right? They edit videos. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. What else do they do?
They could do the social media management, like posting for you.
So social media management, what else?
Coming up with ideas.
Okay. Coming up with ideas, what else can they do?
You can film the content for you.
Okay, film the content. They can also film it, okay? So right off the bat, we know that if we say any of these things, the chances that someone pays us a high amount is very low. So imagine Thanasi going to a girl, making his case. There's 10 guys and he's like, you know what? I'm like every other guy here. I'll do the same things they do. There's no reason for her to pick him. This is what people do in business all the time. It blows my mind. It's why they don't make any money. It's why they're broke. If you want to make money, you figure out what other people do, and then you make your 3 pillars opposite of that. So for example, other things I can talk about with the content agency, a lot of times they will have, I'm not saying this is bad, but stick with me. They will have foreign editors. So we're looking for differentiation. So I could say, hey, my editors are in the US, theirs are foreign. That could be the reason they could pay more. You could say most agencies only do 30 reels a month. We'll do triple what they'll do, right? And again, these have to be things you can deliver on, but I'm just trying to put ideas in your head. Something else you could say is we are ROI based. So you only pay us if you get X amount of views. We'll do ROI reviews. If you get X amount of views or you get X amount of money. Okay, and again, be careful with this because if you can't deliver on this, you're just gonna have problems later. $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi is a great book. He's a good friend of mine, but at the same time, what it's also led to is people making promises that they can't keep. That is not good for your business, okay? Telling your girl that you're gonna take her to dinner every night and then you don't do it won't end up being a good thing for you. She'll be happy the day one, but she's not gonna be happy after that. So ROI and views. Someone else will say like, there's no ROI. So think about it this way, most content agencies, and this is where the problem can run into, and this is also why building a good offer from scratch is good. This is not the best offer in the world, meaning I have buddies who run these and you can do multi 6 figures a month, but you start to bottleneck because there's a lot of fulfillment and clients will blame you for all the problems. So think of it this way, if I edit your videos, most people want edited videos so they can make more money and get more views. If they don't get more money or more views, instead of looking in the mirror at how shitty their content is, like I do all the time, like I'm honest with myself, they go, oh, like, you know, it's probably this agency. So it's a scapegoat. So with that being said though, all people care about when it comes to the content agency is, do they get more views or do they make more money? All this other stuff, every agency can promise. Yeah, we'll edit, we'll shoot, we'll do it. No one gives a shit about that. What they care about is this. So the goal here is what do we do differently and create USPs around that. Hopefully that makes sense, everyone. If you have a question, drop it in the comment section. Now, going back to USPs, what we wanna write down is 1, 2, 3, and we think about the top 3 things we can do. Now, what a USP is unique selling proposition. So the billion-dollar companies, they're super unique. Uber, Facebook, Instagram, no one else is even in their stratosphere. That's why they make so much money, because they don't even have to advertise how they're different. Everyone just knows they're the best, right? Super easy. For the rest of us, for us peblums and peasants, we have to differentiate on what's different about us. So when you're a fitness coach, there's nothing super unique about fitness. Or if you're a content agency, there's nothing super unique about a content agency. It's how much better you are than other people. So what we could do here is a couple things. Usually what I wanna do is I do 2 pillars on the unique selling proposition. I do 1 on myself. So stick with me through this. Let's say I edit in a super unique way that typically will triple views on a video. Okay, so let's say hypothetically I'm talking to a client. I say, look, so pillar number 1, we went through the pre-frame, we did the discovery, I understand, it's like, cool. So now what I'm gonna do, John, is I'm gonna walk you through what I call my 3 pillars that's gonna break down why we're a better option to work with for a content agency than anyone else in the marketplace. And John's like, dope, fuck yeah, like great. So now what I wanna do is I go, look, so pillar number 1, triple X growth. It doesn't matter what it is. The goal here is more to create curiosity. Curiosity is what gets people incentivized. If I say, increase views by 3 times, that's fucking boring, right? Make it sound unique, new. That's what gets people to buy stuff. The key thing here is to do what they do, what I do, and an example. First strategy or first pillar is triple X growth. Now, what most agencies do is they're gonna edit your videos, sure. They're gonna do social media management. They're gonna give you ideas, but they're not gonna actually get you growth. And if you don't get growth, you're not gonna make more money, right? Right. So what we do is we have a unique growth strategy where we do X, Y, Z, and ABC. And when we do that, you get triple the views. And when you get triple the views, that converts into what? Triple the sales. That's the first thing that makes us different. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? There's comparison. People a lot of times when they get on sales calls will just list out what they do. But the problem is every other sales call they had with the content agency tells them the same thing. Pillar number 2 is domestication. Now, again, I'm not saying this is bad. I have foreign editors on my team, but for the sake of the example, stick with me. So let's say I go, number 2 is what I call domestication. Now, most editing agencies use a lot of foreign editors. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of times the quality's not as good. You know, they're not gonna do as great a job. They can't think as clearly. They can't be as creative, whatever. Now, what we do is we only use in-house USA-based editors. Now, they're more expensive, but the quality they put out is significantly higher. So when you work with us, you're gonna get better quality. Better quality means more views means more sales. You see how I keep tying it back to what they care about? No one gives a shit about getting a content agency. What they care about is money and views, like everyone else. I can sell anything because when I'm introduced to the product, I figure out what it is that people want out of the product, and then I tell them that's what it's gonna do. And all you have to do is be ethical at that point. Now, if you have a shit product, people find out, eventually it's gonna go downhill. But assuming this is ethical, this will work. Now, after I got those 2 pillars, the next thing I wanna do is go why they should hire me. So this happens with me all the time. So people go, well, Tanner, that sounds great, but like, why should I hire you still? One that I use in my company a lot is I've done $100 million in sales. You guys have probably seen a million ads where you get annoyed at this point where it's like, oh, it's the guy who says he did 100 million sales. But the reason I say that is because if someone else tries to sell why their consulting company is better, I go, well, yeah, but have they done 100 million in sales? No, they're probably not as good then, right? Because if they were, they would have done it. So in this case, I could say something similar where I go, well, you know, I have 2 million subs on YouTube. These other guys are brand new, etc. But me, what I do is I have 2 million subs on YouTube. You know, I've worked with Alex Hormozi, Grant Cardone, right? Everyone says that, by the way, so be careful. Like, not a lot of people say that, but they actually haven't. But you could list off people and it's like, so I must be legit. So 1 is personal authority, and 2 is a USP, unique selling proposition. What is it you do differently in your agency versus someone else? Because people need to know that. And the only way they're gonna know that is if you do comparison. If you just go to someone and say, I'm a good boyfriend, I'm the best boyfriend, I'm big, I'm strong, I'm fast, I'm like every other guy says that. So what you have to do is say, most people do this and I do this. And that has to be a comparison every single time. I wanna again show you guys, this was off the cuff and this wasn't pre-planned. And we're gonna do 1 more and then we're gonna move into the next part of the sales strategy. So T, give me 1 more offer that you want me to break down.
This one you're gonna love. Basically I'm a mindset coach.
Oh God.
I'm a mindset coach, and I like to help people like increase their performance to make more money.
All right, so the reason he said that is I hate these offers, and the reason is a lot of people when they're selling mindset, it's not because I hate mindset. I love mindset, but mindset is the same thing as everyone else. The only reason I would get mindset coaching, and I did this last year, I've hired 2 very high level and affluent mindset coaches. It's either you want more money, you want better health, or you want better relationships. Mine was centered around relationships. I didn't know how to navigate certain relationships, and I didn't know what to do, so I hired high-level people to help me with that. If you go in and you say you're gonna feel more aligned or enlightened or any of those woo-woo words, it's not gonna work. So let's say I'm a mindset coach. In terms of this, it'd be the same thing. I don't care what these are called, okay? So we could just say like, pillar number 1 is growth explosion, right? Doesn't matter. Pillar number 2 is stargazing, doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter what these are. You just have to tie it back to that. Number 3 is TR and GC, and I'll go through it. So let's walk through this again. Now, the more that these can drive curiosity, the better I've seen it sell. Because if you go to someone and say, let's say for example, I'm going to someone for business consulting and I say, you need to run better Facebook ads. Right? Oh, I've already done it, it didn't work. Now we all know Facebook ads work, they just suck at it, right? But that's not gonna help close them. So what you wanna do is create curiosity. We're like, oh, I've never heard of that before. And even if it is as simple as running Facebook ads, they now think it's something different. That's key. So this is ethical manipulation. Don't make a mistake, it's manipulation, but we wanna be ethical. So here, let's say I said, all right, growth explosion. Now what most mindset coaches do, we go back to the comparison, most mindset coaches will just tell you, do this, do that, and everything's gonna magically get better. What I do is I use this unique method called the growth explosion, which increases your satisfaction in relationships by at least 50%. And you're gonna be the one to actually benchmark that each and every week. So you know it's not just me telling you that, like whatever. We again have to tie it back to what people care about. No one goes into mindset coaching or fitness or anything unless they wanna improve those areas of their lives. So that would be number 1. Number 2 is you can be like, stargazing. Again, this sounds ridiculous, but if I tie it back, it'll work. So it's like, look, most mindset coaches are gonna tell you to read books and do this and that. What I do, I am gonna teach you how to gaze at stars, excuse me. It's so weird, I can't even say it. Gaze at stars. And by gazing at stars, you're gonna increase your relationships and you're gonna make twice as much money as you do now. Now again, this has to make sense, but the point I'm trying to make is if you understand the competition, if you understand what most people do, and you can just Google this stuff, Google it, ask competitors, get on the phone, hey, have you had a mindset coach before? Yeah, like what do they do? You can immediately know that if they say they do all these things, you want to do the opposite. That's how you stand out in the marketplace. It doesn't matter what these things are as long as they tie back that to the result. So when I'm doing business consulting, people don't give a shit what I tell them to do as long as they make money. That's the key. So that's number 2. And then number 3, we'll do TR and GC. So like this one here would be, number 3 is what I call Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone. Because remember, we do 2 about the USP, and then we do 1 about ourselves. So here I go, look, there's a lot of mindset coaches, but I actually mentored Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone. They're, both billionaires, or Tony Robbins I think is close. And that's what makes me qualified. Once we get through this, they should be sold at this point. They should be pretty convinced at this point that you're the fit for them. If they're not, you didn't do a great job in discovery and you didn't address what they actually cared about. Discovery is to figure out what do they really give a shit about and what angle can I take? And then the pillars reinforces what you learned in discovery to tell them you can fix it. So in discovery, they're like, I had a coach who didn't work out. Why? They did this and this. These pillars are gonna wanna beat that objection. It's like, hey, I'm different than that other coach. It's not gonna be the same experience. If you have questions as you're doing this, guys, drop them in the comment section. I know it's a lot, but this is sales, all right? So that is the 3 pillars. All right, after the 3 pillars, the hard part's done. That's about 15-ish minutes. So we're already close to the end, we're about 40 minutes in. The next thing we wanna do is what I call a brief program overview. This part does not matter that much. Keep in mind, people care about the result, not about what they're getting. So here, you just wanna tell them just enough so they understand what's in the program. You're gonna get this, you're gonna get this, this is how this works, just enough so they don't have a bunch of questions and they can grasp what you're giving. This part is super unimportant. I can't tell you how unimportant it is. It's not that important. People do not care what they're getting, they care if they get the result. Meaning, if your goal is to make $1 million and I said lick the floor and you actually believed it would work, you would do it. It's just most people wouldn't believe that. What you're giving them here does not matter. They just need to know that these concepts are gonna get them to where they wanna go. This is 5 minutes or less. So now you're at the 45-minute mark. So here, we wanna create certainty. Again, this should be 2 minutes or less, unless they have an objection. So here we want to get certainty, meaning, hey, Tanner, now that you've heard everything, do you feel this is a fit for you? And then you're like, yeah, I really love this. This is amazing, great. Or they'll say, I'm not really sure. I'm like, what do you mean? And I start fighting those objections before I drop the price. You're in control as long as you are not dropping the price. Once you have dropped the price, they are now in control. So you never want to drop the price until you have raised certainty as close to 100% as possible. You can't always get it there, but we want it as close to 100% as possible. So the goal here is fight through those objections to get them certain, or they say, yeah, I'm certain. You're like, great. Then we want to do is close, and then we fight objections for the last 15 minutes. So you want to give yourself about 15 to 20 minutes here to fight objections and close the deal. You shouldn't have calls that go longer than an hour for a high ticket sale. It just shouldn't happen. Now, before I get into the actual objections, because there's 4 and I'm going to erase this on the board, 2 other things you want to make sure as you're going through is have great tonality and confidence, and then straight line selling, meaning tonality and confidence is how you say things. So a lot of people, if you're not confident on the call, they can tell. I can say the craziest thing, but if I seem certain in it, it raises other people's certainty because they go, well, fuck, like if he's that certain, maybe I'm thinking incorrectly. Does that make sense? So you want to raise people's certainty as high as humanly possible. The second thing is straight line selling, meaning when I give people this structure, it's not so that they can just have pre-written questions and just read bullet points. The goal is that if they're not doing this or this, if they're not on this path, they are off the line, which means that they get back online. Offline means you start talking about random shit that doesn't actually help you make sales. I hear this, any sales call that typically goes over an hour is usually because they're not on the line, meaning they're not following straight line selling. Jordan Belfort has a book about it. You need to get people back on the line because anything else outside of that is just wasted motion. So think of it, if you're at the gym and you're on the treadmill and then you start going, sideways. It's just wasted effort and motion. The fastest way to run is this way. And so if you're doing anything else, you can do that, but you're just wasting time and energy on things that don't drive the sell. With this out of the way, the last thing, obviously, to sell anything, you have to beat objections. Now, the nice thing about high ticket sales specifically, as I get ready for this, is that there's only 4 objections. Now, this could vary by industry, of course. Door-to-door sales, when I did that, I knocked about 27,000 doors over 9 months. And there were about 20 to 30 different objections. The cool thing here is there's only 4. I'm gonna walk you through all 4. So the most common is price. If I go into a sale, I'm gonna walk you through this, and I go, Tanner, the price is $10,000 for 4 months. That's the close. Prospect, let's say his name's John, goes, oh, you know what, Tanner, that's too much. That's the objection. I say, John, no problem, I totally get it. I agree with him. And now I start to isolate. So I go, John, let me ask you this. Is there anything else besides the price that would stop you from moving forward today? He's like, no, it's just the price. Like, cool. So if we were able to figure out the price, then you would buy. And keep in mind, I want to give you logical frameworks. I don't like emotional selling because emotional selling is too complex for someone to learn, right? I want to make this super straight and narrow so that it's easy to follow. Emotional selling is all over the place. And to be frank, unless you're a super high level sales rep, I don't even think you're qualified to do it. So we want to isolate that. And he goes, yeah, it's just the price. So that is called a tie down. We got him to commit that, yeah, it's just this thing. In sales, we don't want people moving all over the place. We want to get it down to one thing so we can beat it. If they have multiple objections, you cannot win until you've beaten all of them. So we want to narrow it down. So he says yes. And then I go, cool. Just to confirm, if we figure out the price, you're down to move forward today. Yes. So that's a double tie down. This is key. If you don't get those tie downs, then that later they can go back and try to back out. You get these tie downs as you go so they can't go back later and go against what they said prior. That's super important in sales. That's why we're asking these questions. So now I go, cool. Well, John, so I can best help you. What's your cash on hand situation look like? So checking, savings, credit cards, what do you have now that you can use? Not in your Roth IRA, not this, not that. Like, what do you have that you can actually use? And John goes, well, I have this amount. Now, before I get into what to do next, let's say this is a $10,000 program. You need to know what's the lowest amount of money you'll take. Meaning, if you had someone who came to you and said, I want to do it, I'm on board, but all I have is this much, what's the lowest amount you would take? This can vary for every business owner or sales rep. So if you're watching this, that's up to you. If you only want to take 10,000, great. Then you don't have to learn this next part. If you want to take anything less than that, you need to learn this part. And honestly, you should learn it anyways. But this number that you're willing to take in a financial squeeze is important. So let's say here that the price is 10,000 and the lowest amount we're willing to take is 2,000. Now, when I ask for cash on hand from John, what's your cash on hand? And if he says anything below 2,000, it's pretty simple. I go, okay, so just to be clear, you don't have enough money to do this, meaning When you say you have less than 2,000, you're not saying that you don't want to do it. You're saying you literally don't have it, right? It gets pretty easy from there because like, yeah, I literally don't have it. And you go, cool, like, you know, is there any other way we can work this out? Do you have friends, family, etc.? No, you wrap the call up. It's that simple. Like, people will say that if someone wants it bad enough, they'll buy it. But end of the day, guys, like, you're not selling a Lamborghini. I know people use that example or a Ferrari, but yeah, you're not fucking selling that, are you? This is just a real life product. They need it possibly. They're not either seeing the value to go out and get a loan or cash or whatever, or they just simply don't have it. Now, if someone genuinely has it and they won't do it, that's different. That's just a belief issue and you need to work on it. But let's say they genuinely don't have at least $2,000. Then you wrap up the call. Done. Now, if they say anything above that, so he goes, oh, I got 4,000, I got 3,000, I got 5, it doesn't matter. Anything above the minimum number you're willing to take. It's very simple. You go, cool. Let's say John says 3,000. John, so you got $3,000. Yes. Okay. So just to be clear, you have 3,000. Is that what you can spend per month or total? Total. Okay, cool. So here's what I'm thinking, John. And this is how we get another tie down. I go, look, typically the price of the program is $10,000. Now, with that being said, that's not realistic for you because you don't have it. You only have 3,000. Now, I'm willing to work something out for you, but before I do, I just wanna make sure you can move forward today, right? Because I want this to be fair. I don't wanna figure something out for you and then you tell me you can't move forward. So before I figure something out for you financially, I just wanna make sure you can move forward today. Why is that so impactful? Because you're getting them to commit that they wanna move forward as long as you figure something out. I've seen a million times people get to here and they go, John, what's your cash on hand? This much. They figure out a deal and then he goes, yeah, I still need to think about it. Because you didn't get the commitment that he's gonna move forward once you figure it out. That's so important. In this case, John goes, yeah, like, okay, cool. Or they might say, well, what's the amount? It's like, well, don't worry, like, I'll figure it out for you. I just wanna make sure you'll move forward if it makes sense. You don't need to say the number. You don't give any discounts. You don't drop prices until they commit. Bad salesmen drop price immediately. That's why they don't sell anything, because it comes off desperate. People don't buy from desperate people. They buy from confident people. This will make you sound confident because you're trying to give him an actual solution. Now, once he commits to that, I'll say, cool. Well, I don't think you should spend all of it, but I do think you should do something, okay? So here's what I have in mind, and then I will pitch what I have. One of two things are gonna happen. Either he says yes, or he goes, that still won't work, and I go, cool. Well, what do you suggest then? Because I wanted to come with a solution that seemed to make sense off the finances. What do you suggest? And that's it. And then they're gonna, say this or that, and you wrap the call up. Very simple. Now, if they still won't buy, but they have the money, now it's a belief issue. We need to go back to discovery earlier in the call and go, well, look, you said this, you said this, you said this, you said if we figured it out, you move forward. What's the deal? That's a belief issue. And we're gonna also go through the belief objection later, but this is price. This is, I would honestly say, like 70% of my clients' issues. If you can learn how to do this properly and sound smooth, there's more YouTube videos. You guys can check that out on my YouTube. Just look them up. You'll make a ton of sales. You'll make a ton of money. It's so easy. And you'll sound good doing it. You sound empathetic, you're helping them out, you're getting money for your business. And I'll be honest with you, people who do this make more money because even if this isn't the price you wanted, if you wanted 10K, but you get 2 or 3 grand, that money goes into ads, it goes to your team, like it helps you run the business. Getting something is better than nothing unless it's too strenuous for your fulfillment team. Number 2, spouse. So with spouse, kind of the same thing. We have A, B, C, D. So if I say, all right, Thanasi, 10 grand. And he goes, you know what, Tanner? I just gotta talk to my wife, right? I hate that one, or my business partner. I go, cool. What are you gonna do if she says no? And he usually will go, well, I probably won't do it, right? 20% of the time they'll say that. I go, great, let's just sign up. That happens very rare, right? I'll be honest, that doesn't always happen, but it does sometimes, you'd be shocked. Usually what they'll say is I go, well, what are you gonna do if they say no? And Thanasi will go, well, I probably wouldn't do it. So I go, got it. What would their biggest objection be? I'd say 80% of the time that's what happens. I go, Thanasi, it's 10K. Hey, I can't do it. Okay, why? Well, my spouse. I gotta talk to my spouse. Got it. What are you gonna do if they say no? Well, I wouldn't do it. Okay, what would their biggest objection be? That happens 80% of the time. And then what they usually say is this, well, it would be price. It's like, oh. So you just move right back over here to price. You go, oh, got it. So it's not that you need to talk to your wife. You just already know her so well that you know it's gonna be price. So if you figure price out, you can move forward today, right? Yeah. And then you just walk through the price objection. That's 80% of the time. I'd say this is 80%, this is like 20%. Now, if you figure that out and they're like, yeah, I still gotta talk to her, then you go to C, which is called past agreements. And past agreements just means you go, well, look, Thanasi, does your wife know you're here? Yes. Does she know that you wanna do this? Yes. Does she want you to be happy? Does she support you? Yes. And if the roles were reversed, will you support her? Yes. And why would she be against you doing something that she knows she wants you to do and makes you happy and is gonna be good for you? If they still won't do it, you moved into what's called a delayed payment. Now, this is how I specifically do the spouse objection. This can change slightly depending on what the objection is, but I love this one. So I go, you still gotta talk to your wife, right? And I've done it 3 times. 3 is the magic number. If you push 3 times and they won't do it, wrap the call up, you're gonna break rapport. So even if it's a low chance it's gonna close at this point, you have 0% chance if you keep pushing, because you're gonna break any rapport you have left. So I go, look, let me ask you this. Are you 51% sure that you wanna do it or 51% no? So I know you gotta talk to your wife, etc. You gotta sleep on it, but I just wanna make sure, like, are you 51% yes or 51% no? 90-something% of the time they go, oh, I'm 51% yes. I'm like, perfect. So let me ask you this. What I typically do in this situation, as long as you're 51% sure, is I take a deposit, a refundable deposit, and then if you go back and you talk to your wife, right, and she says you can't do it, she says this, she says that, sometimes I'll make it funny, right? I'm like, oh, she says, you know, she doesn't want you to be richer, smarter, etc. Then I'll just refund you and call it a day. Does that sound fair enough? And then what will happen is either they'll do it or they'll say, I don't want to do that. And they go, okay, well, end of the day, you can do whatever you want, but I just want to be sure. Push, pull, right? So end of the day, you can do whatever you want, which is I pull back, but then I push and go, but I guess I don't really think this makes sense because you say you need to talk to your wife. I get that. But you say you're over 51% sure. And what I like to do in my process is just get a deposit. So I'm not chasing people around. It shows me you're a little committed and it's fully refundable. And again, you're not signing an agreement or anything. So let's say I'm the world's worst person on earth. You can just charge back, get your money back, right? So I'm cool to let you do what you want, but I just want to let you know this is my process. And I feel like if you can't follow that, then we probably just aren't a fit and let's just call it a day. What do you say? That is a more aggressive way to try to get some commitment, because remember, when they're saying this, it's usually not that they need to talk to their spouse. They're just not gonna sign up. Those are the 2 most common. I'd say this is like 70% of the time, this is 20%, and then these last 2 are 5 or 10% each. So that's spouse. The next one is time. Time's pretty easy. So this is like, I need to think about it, I need time, I'm not ready. So there's a million ways to handle this. The way I like to handle it, again, because I'm a very logical seller, so I only like to give you one way to sell, is this. I just go, look, do you know what deciding means? They go, no. I'm like, all right, cool. In Latin, what it means is a cutoff. So are we cutting off the future of your past or the future of your dreams, right? Because inaction or not making a decision is still a decision. So let's see if we can walk through how you can make a decision. Are you cool with that? Yeah, cool, great. So there's really 3 things we need to think about. So guys, so number 1 is, do you trust us, right? Do you believe what we're saying? Yeah, okay, cool. Number 2 is, do you think you're getting closer to your goal or farther away working with us? Like, obviously it's like closer. Like, do you think like working with us is gonna get you farther? It's like, no, okay, cool. Then number 3, do you have finances available or resources you can get? Yeah, okay, cool. So based on that, you actually have all the information you need to make a decision. So let's just go ahead and make the decision that you've already made. Sound fair enough? If they don't do that, I move into a delayed deposit. Now, keep in mind, guys, this is not a very common objection. Okay, it's very rare. And if you've done the discovery correctly at the beginning, yes, I'm gonna move forward today. Yes, this is what I want. These very rarely come up. It's almost 90% of the time gonna be one of these 2. So if you're gonna learn 1 objection, learn this. If you're gonna learn 2 objections, do that and spouse, price and spouse, okay? Once you've done these 3, occasionally you'll still get people who aren't ready to buy. And now what the odd objection is belief. So the only other time you should get another objection if you've done a good job is when it gets to belief, meaning you've beaten the objection and they go, you know what, Tanner, I gotta think. I don't know. I just, I'm not ready. Thank you for the call. Like, let's just follow up. And I go, cool, no worries. Well, look, let me ask you this, John. What's the worst thing you can imagine happening? All right, let's say you sign up. What's the worst outcome you can think of? And they always will say, well, it doesn't work. It's like, okay, well, let's walk through that. Because again, we just gotta beat these objections. They're not real, they're fake. They're just making shit up. Beat it, just push it out of the way. So I go, cool, so look, let's walk through the 3 options. You can do it and get results and everybody's happy, right? So you get results, we get paid, everyone wins. You do it and you don't get results, you could get a refund. Now, if you do a refund, it needs to be performance guaranteed, meaning performance-based, meaning they have to do XYZ things to get a refund. In consulting specifically, this could vary on business, but if you're doing something where they have to do work, you cannot do a just money back whenever you want guarantee. Okay, this is not tech, this is not SaaS, this is not a piece of cloth or shoes. They have to do work, so I make it performance-based. So for example, in my consulting company, if we did do that, it would be, you have to do X amount of calls, X amount of messages, X amount of ads. Like, you gotta do stuff like that to get the refund. You don't just get a refund for no reason, okay? So that would be number 2. If you don't have a refund, just cut this out. Let's do it real quick. Let's pretend this isn't here. So I go, number 1, what's the worst thing that can happen? Number 1, you do it and get results, everyone's happier. Number 2, you do nothing and stay stuck. There's only one decision that keeps you stuck. So let's make the other decision that's gonna move you forward, okay? If I have this, I go, number 1, you can do it and get results, you're great. Number 2, you get a refund. Or number 3, you do nothing. So out of all those decisions, The only one that's gonna hurt you is doing nothing, because you'll either get a full refund or you're gonna get results. So let's go ahead and make the decision that you know you need to make anyway. Sound fair enough? If they don't do that, then again, you move into delayed payment. That right there, everyone, is what I've learned from knocking on 27,000 doors, doing $100 million in sales, building multiple sales team, having 50,000 clients, doing over $1 billion in revenue for our clients. If you can just follow what's in this video, I'm telling you that's 99% of sales training. Like, people will try to give you new spiffs and objection handling and one-liners and all this other stuff, but I'm telling you, just focus on the concepts. If you start to learn, as you get smarter and make more money, you'll see there's so much knowledge out there that you can go so deep on one thing that it'll start actually making it harder to live your life and run a business. Focus on the main concepts. So if you can focus on the scripting we did, if you can focus on using these 4 objection frameworks, you focus on your tonality, how you talk. Notice throughout this video, very confident, right? I feel like I know what I'm saying. And even if you are a little second guessing, you go, yeah, I mean, he sounds like you know what he's saying. All those things play into closing a sale and will help you sell anything at any time to anyone. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. If you want to see more content or videos, check them out on my page. Just type in sales. There's actual live sales calls. Appreciate you being here. As always, I'll see you in the next video.